Hi everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with a match preview for Newcastle United's upcoming game against Nottingham Forest this weekend at the City Ground. Oh dear, remember this game a few weeks ago. I've just watched the highlights to remind myself before we did the preview, and I've just depressed myself even further. But we're going to get stuck right into this, talk about how we think the lads are going to line up. More injuries on the horizons. No surprise there for Newcastle United this season. We're going to talk about how we think the game is going to go and what we think the result is going to be as well. Just before we do, a little reminder, if you haven't already, click subscribe. We'd love you to come and join us. We're over 6,500 subs. Loads of room for you guys here, Nevermore. All free content. If you do want to give a little bit back to us, there's a little membership option down there for you to click. It's less than a pint of lager these days. Way less than a pint of lager, actually. You can probably get 2 pints of lager. It'd be 2 memberships for the cost of a pint of lager. I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyway, it's cheap. So click that if you can and help support us and help the channel grow. So let's get stuck in then. So as I say, it's Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, 5:30 kickoff, live on Sky. It's 16th versus 9th on paper. You know, you'd normally think Newcastle got a good chance to win this game. But Boxing Day, not too long ago there, we were only in February after all, Nottingham Forest battered us at St James's Park, even though we went 1-0 up with a penalty from Alexander Isak, breakthrough ball by Lewis Miley. They beat us 3-1. And the star of the show that day was a former Newcastle United striker in Chris Wood, who got a hat-trick, if you could believe it. So this is not going to happen this time around because Chris Wood is injured for Nottingham Forest, which is great news. And apparently Morgan Gibbs-White is also an injury doubt, but I think he will be fit enough to play personally. But let's get stuck in about our lads and who we think is going to play for us. So this is the lineup we think we're going to go for. Injuries to Anthony Gordon. The good news with Anthony Gordon is it doesn't seem to be that serious of an injury, but it's serious enough to keep him out of this when he was on crutches, when he left the Luton 4-4 draw. Isak is obviously still out, but apparently those 2 injuries aren't that serious. It's more precautionary. But thankfully, Callum Wilson has come back from injury and he should be fit to start the game. So this is what we're going to go with. The front three of Miggy Almiron on the left-hand side, Wilson and Murphy. The midfield 3 picks itself because there's literally nobody else at the moment, to be quite honest with you. I don't think Harvey Barnes will start. I think Harvey Barnes will be on the bench and he's back into fitness from what I gather, which is a smart move because, you know, you can see what he does when he comes off the bench against Luton, scores the 4th goal. You don't want to risk him getting injured and breaking down in the middle of the game. So we've got Louis Miley, Bruno and Sean Longstaff still continuing there. 2 good goals for Sean against Luton. The rest of his game not great though, and that midfield is very wide open in terms of attack, especially against talented players like Morgan Gibbs-White. But the focus on this game, no doubt, is going to be in the defence, and particularly on the left-hand side of the defence. Now, we have picked Tino Livramento, and I hope to Christ that Eddie Howe picks the same person in that position. Dan Burn had a shocker against Luton, murdered for pace. And if you go back to the Boxing Day game, he got murdered for pace again against Alanga, who will be playing for Nottingham Forest. Now, this is a major, major test here of what Eddie Howe is going to do in terms of making big decisions and big calls. He's been accused in the past before about being too loyal to players. Dan Burn is most definitely one of those players. Sean Longstaff also falls in that category, but Dan Burn definitely is one of those players. He's been talking about Dan, saying that he shouldn't be exempt from criticism, you know, but he has been one of his best signings since he's been here. That doesn't mean he, you know, guarantees his place in the team and everything else. All the little noises that Eddie is saying tells me he's going with Tino. And I hope to fucking God he does, because if he does not play Tino Livramento against Nottingham Forest on Saturday, Alanga will murder Burn. He will rip him inside now, and we will be 2 or 3-0 down before we even know it. I was watching them highlights again. Not only did Alanga get away from Burn, he absolutely obliterated Botman as well. So this kid is rapid, and we need pace on that left-hand side. Please, Eddie, do the right thing and play Tino for the love of God. So the rest of the back 4 picks itself, and obviously Martin Dubravka in goal. But looking at kind of where the key areas are of this game, the big key thing really for Forest is if Morgan Gibbs-White is fit, because he dictates the games to me. He bosses the games. He's been linked to Newcastle on several occasions. You know, I hold my hands up when he went to Forest and Wolves for 40 million. I burst out laughing and said, "You're joking. He's not a £40 million player." He's been sensational for Forest this season. He's their go-to man. He's their danger man. And with that midfield being so wide open, he could play balls through all day long, you know, for willing runners in the shape of Alanga. Obviously, in terms of their main players as well, so Chris Wood is out, which is a big thing, and obviously scored loads of goals against us, didn't he, in the last game? So thank God he is out. Also, Willy Bolly and Sangre, I think they're going to be in the African Cup of Nations because their team got to the final, I do believe, for the Ivory Coast. Look at the rest of them there. Giovanni Reina who was ineligible to play, and Matt Sells, remember him, played for Newcastle. They might very well come into the Forest squad as well. So just looking at the kind of squad that they might pick, because they've got some goalkeeper troubles, which is why they've signed Matt Sells. It would just be like Matt Sells, wouldn't it, to get an absolute worldie under his belt, man of the match, and keep us at bay, and then they win 1-0 or something. Matt Sells, Nico Williams, is it Nakiata, Felipe Tavares, Yantes, Danilo, Elanga, who's a danger player as well, Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, looks like he's coming to a bit of the game as well, and then the big man up front, Awoni, who will give us some trouble. He will rough up Botman and Shea a little bit. That's the kind of game he'll go for. Botman and Shea look really ropey, I felt, against Luton, and I just think that he'll be looking to get in amongst them. That pace out wide is going to be key with Hudson-Odoi and Elanga either side, pace and creativity out wide. And for me, that's why Tino simply has to play. So how do I think this game is going to go? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not feeling great about the game. I think the Luton game really, what's the word? It just deflated me a little bit, I think, in terms of what we're capable of doing against these teams now, this opposition. With Newcastle, seems to be, one step forward, 2 steps back. And I think the lack of discipline in that midfield is so apparent now. Bruno's worried about making a tackle in case he gets another yellow card and gets a suspension, so he's not really playing the way that he normally plays. Longstaff just goes up and down, left and right, all over the place. Doesn't seem to be able to stick in one position. Can't seem to really put a tackle on anybody, which is really worrying for a centre midfielder. Louis Miley put a great tackle on Ross Barkley for the 4th goal. Now, this is where Eddie Howe's in-game management again has to come into play. With those 3 players, one of them's got to sit. One of them's got to drop 15 yards back and watch Morgan Gibbs-White on that ball. Morgan Gibbs-White will stroll through the middle of that midfield, picking passes left and right, or even pull the trigger from range himself, which he's deadly at, unless somebody goes with him and sits with him. Now, whether that's Bruno or whether that's Miley, one of the 2 of them has to go with Morgan Gibbs-White. They have to have eyes on Gibbs-White every time he makes that forward burst and he makes that move. If we don't do it, he will boss that midfield once again like he did on Boxing Day. And that is a real worry. We look so disjointed without Joe Linton in the middle of that park. I still can't understand why we didn't go and get a midfielder in the January transfer window. Massive error from the club. Massive mistake. I know people say Phillips, so he's going to take time and all that and everything else, but it would have been a body in there who could have sat deep and protected the back 4 when you've got players like Gibbs-White who want to get on the ball and dictate things. Now, is Gibbs-White Zinedine Zidane? No, he's not, right? But when your midfield 3 are all the way up there, they haven't got the legs to get back because neither one of them is blessed with pace, as Bruno as well. And he's just going to stroll right through the middle of the park and cause us trouble. So I'm quite worried about this game, if I'm honest with you. I hate being negative when I'm talking about a Newcastle United result or predicting a result. But for me, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And I think that's actually a good result for us at the moment. I know that sounds really negative and really crap, but away at Forest, I think, they've come at a little bit of form recently. For me, 1-1 draw, I think, is a good enough result for us. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think. If you think a draw is a good result, or do you think we should be going there and getting the win? Obviously, we're missing key players once again. The good news is that Joe Willock, I think, might be back soon. Elliot Anderson's sharing pictures about being close to fitness, and that's really good adding quality of that squad, because if those 2 players were available in this team or this squad off the bench, I'd probably fancy our chances to maybe nick a 2-1. But as it stands, no, I don't think we're going to. So I think a 1-1 draw is my prediction on that. But let us know what you guys think. We always like to hear from you. As I mentioned at the start, smash subscribe, come and join us. It's all free content, Evermore. But if you want to support us, there is the member option there too. You get early access to these videos, which is one of the benefits that we do. So smash the button, smash whichever one suits you. I'll be back on post-match duties after the Forest game, hopefully talking about a great Newcastle result and not talking about left backs being skinned by pace once again. Have a cracking day wherever you are, everyone. We'll see you later. Cheers.